also for students who like to write, but they may not be able to do like a full-on English major, but they might want to develop their skill sets in creative writing or professional writing. And so those are the grant writing class is one that we've just added. We're working on adding a writing for children class, which I think will really attract also education majors, and people have really fond memories of their children's books. So I think that's going to attract a wide, a liberal arts sort of audience, not just in the English major. The other thing we've added is a composition theory class. And this is actually where students will start to develop a writing portfolio their sophomore year, and they add to it for the next 2 years, so that by the time they're graduating, they have something they can show, but I think more importantly, can talk about and sort of say, look, here's why I am capable of being a grant writer, or here are all of the many ways I can adjust my skills for different needs and audiences. So I think those are going to be popular in terms of minors. I do think some of our more popular classes, one is Dr. Sullivan's Apocalypse class. People love that. It's zombies and the Book of Revelation, and that always attracts a lot of people. And then Shakespeare too is popular for a different reason.
Awesome. It sounds like an interesting class. Catherine, you've taken that class?
Yes, I've taken quite a few of Dr. Sullivan's classes. He's actually my capstone professor this semester.
I had him for English 101. I just want to say that.
I've taken with him a mythology class. It focused not only on myths from all around the world, but also folklore from here in America. I've taken the Apocalypse class, and I'm in the middle of taking his Shakespeare class. Something that Dr. Livingood didn't mention is plenty of her classes are really interesting too. She had a banned books class one or two semesters ago that, it's not everything we talk about. I remember in high school finding out that books we were reading, like Huckleberry Finn, were banned books, even though they're still being taught to the mainstream audience.
Interesting. Now, I think you mentioned you started to allude to some of the kind of professional experience that you've had while you're at Marietta College. And I know a lot of the alumni listening probably feel very strongly about internships. Have you had an internship yet?
Yes. When I came into the English major, it wasn't required to have an internship, but I really wanted to get one anyways for the experience for any future jobs. I worked with the Juvenile Detention Center, Washington County, and Writers in Residence to teach the kids there writing and music. We taught all sorts of things. We had one whole class that centered around rap music in particular, but then another one that focused on love poems, because we wanted to give them a wide variety and range. That was last semester, and then it was going to continue this semester, but it wasn't able to due to, just stuff going on right now. Other things I've done that have given me experience is the grant writing class I took last semester. We actually met up with many organizations around Marietta and wrote grants for them. These weren't grants that they had to use, but these were ones that were given to them. We went and interviewed people at the nonprofits, and it gave us a lot of hands-on experience in writing an actual grant for people.
Very interesting. Brittany, did you, as a young graduate or before you graduated, did you have any internship experiences? And then how did that kind of translate into where you are now?
Yeah, so I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my degree. I thought I was going to go to law school. I went through some like LSAT prep, and I was like, this is probably not going to work. So really trying to figure out what to do. And I just talked to people. I was like, what are my skills transferable to? And a lot of people just kept saying HR. I was like, okay. So I had 2 internships. So my sophomore and junior years, I had one actually at Ernst & Young. So that is probably my biggest internship. To this day, it still stands out on my resume. And then my next one was with a smaller oil and gas company. And so it was one of those things where I didn't love what I was doing, but I was getting experience. I quickly learned that HR or practicing HR was not something I was interested in. Now, if I received a job in it, I was going to go do it, but it was not something that I was going to probably do for a long time. But fast forward to now, so I am what you call an HCM, so Human Capital Management, which is essentially HR, solution consultant. You might hear it as solution engineering, but essentially I am the functional and technical expert of the product. And I work for a company called Workday. This is our branding. And so I sell HR software, and that was my in. And actually, in one of my internships, I used Oracle's product, and Oracle was my first job out of college. So those were kind of my ins. I had a little bit of HR background. I had familiarity with the product at Oracle at the time. So I was there for 5 years. And so it was kind of this really windy, weird, roundabout way. But when you take a step back, it all makes complete sense that I started in HR. And HR is actually a great path for English majors because there's a lot of transferable skills. And as an industry, they're normally more open to the liberal arts and broader degrees. So that would be kind of one area I would encourage people to look into. And with 2020, and we're seeing just how the workplace is changing so much, HR, talent management, they're becoming much more strategic aspects of organizations, and organizations are realizing that.
Interesting. Very interesting. And then I would love to hear from Nancy, since Nancy said that she was wanted to be a high school teacher, and I believe she's now the director of government relations for a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. So tell us about that. Well, what did that look like?
Quite a change, right? Yeah, so remember back at college in the 70s, and the teaching really flooded. It was really difficult to get a teaching job. And so I actually went back home to Morristown, New Jersey, and went to my high school where I graduated. Thank God I had a good reputation. Remembered me, and I was able to start actually teaching and then got a permanent job there. I was there for about 3 years and decided I wanted to leave my hometown and wanted to go to Washington. And when you go to Washington, D.C., most people here either work on the Hill, they're attorneys, or they work for nonprofits. And I couldn't find a teaching job at all. And there just wasn't any. And so I really had to pivot. What it was I wanted, and I decided I wanted to start working in nonprofit. And I really have to say that my liberal arts, my degree in speech and English, the fact that I have oral and written communication skills was really, really important. And I started working for a trade association, government. It intrigued me. I was interested in it. And I have to tell you that back when I was in college, I never would have dreamed, there was no way I ever would have in a million years that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And so I had an association. I kept working my way up. And I think it's really important. It's very different now, where back then, I know there's a lot of discussion about women equaling men and so forth, but back then you couldn't even get the same job with the level of education. The male was always getting the better job with the better title. And I was very fortunate to connect with colleagues and superiors, supervisors who really mentored me. And I encouraged, because that, I made those connections, and each job I had, I kept getting, more, a better title. And my last job, I'm still in, I've been in for 29 years. I'm getting ready to retire end of March. I'm very excited about that. Yay. But I am responsible for federal legislation, for regulatory and all the regulatory aspects, and the political action committee. And I represent 7,000 ophthalmologists. So it's a medical specialty society. So I'm constantly my, oral communications, obviously, that's what that's all about, but also written skills as well, to be able to communicate with members and help to, communicate of Congress. So it was a pivoting, if you will. And, I identified mentors. And I have to say that in all the years, I've hired a lot of people as well. And I've become mentors to them. And, they hire somebody that doesn't necessarily have every single thing I'm looking for. But typically, if they have some kind of English background, I may take a chance. I work with them and I help them along, and then they've gone on to very successful careers. So, I have to say that, being a mentor, being able to pivot and not being so done in your mind as to what it is, this is what I'm going to do. And, you have to other possibilities. So.
I feel like, especially with what's going on in the world right now with COVID, we are all kind of forced to write a lot more than we ever were, because we do so much communication via email and Slack and text message and Zoom chat than we ever did before in person. I can tell you, my Slack channel goes my Slack goes a little insane these days with all the events that are going on, and there's a lot of writing going on. Brittany, so you're also in kind of a hiring and recruitment kind of position, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I deal with selling an HR product, and I do talk a
Right.
lot about recruiting and stuff.
Do you find when you're bringing on younger employees, I think there's a common feeling among us old people that I'll lump myself in there, that younger people don't write anymore. Are you finding that to be true? And if so, is that kind of a hallmark of an English major, or a good thing to look for on a resume?
Yeah, I would say in my role specifically, just because you do have to be a good communicator, I don't find that necessarily. However, when I do talk to other people who are hiring or in different types of roles, they are finding that challenge of just communication, whether it's written or oral. It's definitely changed. There's not as much emphasis. So, Nancy, when we were talking the other day, you were saying how much grammar was really, really important. I learned grammar for sure, but I don't know if it was to the extent that you did, Nancy. And so I think there is a sense of professionalism when you know how to articulate yourself well. So, you could be 21 years old, but if you write well, you talk well, articulate yourself well, that makes you stand out, because people do recognize you're 21 years old, right? You're fresh out of college. Your experience is rather limited. And ultimately, like, you've been a kid until now. And so I think if you articulate yourself in such a manner, it shows off as a very good professional skill to have, because you're gonna have to talk to people. There's a lot of emails. And at least with me, I'm customer facing. So my customer correspondence has to be very professional. I can't put LOL or anything like that at the end. And so, yeah, I would say that
I do that all the time, just as an FYI. I use emojis in work emails.
I think it depends. But yeah, so I think it's not a bad skill to have, and I think it is a differentiator no matter what job you're going into. And I think that's why, at Marietta, you have communications 101 and everyone has writing 101, because there has to be a level setting. So when I came into school, we were all kind of all over the place when it came to exposure to writing. I was very fortunate, came from a good high school that really focused on writing and how to build a paper and a thesis and punctuation. And then some people didn't. And so that there had to be some level set somewhere for them to learn it, because if you don't learn it, I don't know when it's going to happen, kind of thing.
It's kind of one of those neat things about being a Marietta College graduate. It's one of those things that ties us together through, from the class of 2021 to the class of 1921, is I think we all had to take English 101 and speech 101. I think that's a commonality that unites us all. So yeah, I know my parents were I had a learning disability in written language, and my parents were very impressed that I tested out of English 080 when I came in for the placement test and got to take Dr. Sullivan's English 101 class. It was a fun experience, I can tell you that. I think I probably squeaked by about that much. The 080 class might have been helpful. I'm sorry, Catherine, we kind of hit on the whole COVID thing. I would love to hear about what, Marietta College, in a pandemic is like, and how it's changed, and what classes are like, and all of that. You're on mute.
Well,
We have a
I'd
rule
say,
with the MCAA, and I can say this because I'm pretty sure you're 21. You have to put $1 in the townhouse tip jar every time you
okay.
get caught on mute.
Oh no, I'd have to actually go there first.
Uh-oh.
So we've been doing what they're calling the Marietta College cocktail. Everyone wears a mask around campus, and that's been, I think, the most visible change because you still see people, hanging out with their friends, but it's usually socially distanced. People are tending to stay in their rooms or go to study rooms instead of just hanging out on the mall, but we still see each other as we pass through classes every day. We're still having classes in person, which is a really good benefit for me because I learn a lot easier when I can be focused and in the proper setting. Most classrooms are keeping students 6 feet apart, and they're either asynchronous or a mix between that and in person. So I have a class on Monday where we meet in person Monday and Friday, but only online on Wednesday. And this is just to make it easier for us to stay separated. And then when they do contact tracing, if someone does catch COVID, they can do it accurately.
Dr. Livingood, are you, so with, I know at one point there were more than 100 students in quarantine. So does that mean that you've had to transition your in-person classes to online, or is it a hybrid model? I know we have some teachers on this call, and they've been forced to do the hybrid model. Is that the same for college professors at Marietta?
Yeah, we've been able to really be flexible based on personal needs as well as just the best for our students in pedagogy. So my own classes, I've primarily been face-to-face, but I have had students who had to Zoom in. And then when we reached the peak with so many students in quarantine, I would say I was about half remote learning and half in person. And it reached a point where it was too much for me as a teacher to feel like I was able to reach everybody. So then I made the choice that, you know what, it'll be more equal if we are all on Zoom. So I had a couple of days where I just Zoomed. And I will say I don't love Zoom generally. And it was really hard last spring. But the advantage has been you can do group work in a way that you can't when you're face-to-face socially distancing. And so especially for interactive teachers, it's been kind of a weird thing for me to go, oh, I love Zoom days because my students can be in groups and talk to each other in a way that they can't right now. So it's really depended on student body, professor needs, just a whole host of things. But I think for English, the face-to-face has worked for me fairly well.
I think that's good to hear. I think a lot of the Marietta College alumni have been worried about what the Marietta College experience has been. I heard, Catherine, that at the beginning of the semester, they were doing some special on-campus activities and treats and things like that for you guys.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they were doing that, and they still are kind of continuing to do that. As cases went up, they tried to space those out. They had physical activities such as capture the flag and other outdoor field events that they could have right on the Harrison lawn. They had painting pumpkins out in the amphitheater between Gilman and the library in October. They've had virtual bingo. They also do movie nights pretty often. They've just really been focused on keeping us pretty happy and connected to each other in ways that, honestly, I'd say that we weren't even before COVID.
How do you think that compares? Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I definitely know more people now than I think I did before. Breakout groups, like Dr. Livingood said, have been really helpful for getting people to actually talk to each other. And then all the different outdoor field events, they put us in random groups, and then doing the Netflix watch parties, putting us in different groups. They just were really focused on getting us to interact with different people and expand, our pioneers.
Awesome. Good to hear. I think that would be the opposite of what anybody would expect, that you met more people or you've interacted with more people this year than in the past. So that's awesome to hear. Glad to hear it. I know it's probably been a lot of work for the faculty and staff, so a big shout out to the faculty and the staff at Marietta and the administration at Marietta for making that possible. Brittany, I'd love to go and kind of put you on the spot here and ask for your best advice for a college junior or a college senior. What do you think are the big things that they should be focused on in the next, 6 months to 18 months?
Yeah, and I know 2020 kind of is a very unique challenge in of itself and probably likely into 2021, but that aside, I think, expanding your network or tapping into your network is one of the most important things that you can do. It comes up a lot when you're a college student, right? You're at dinners or you meet people and they're like, "What? Tell me about yourself." And you're like, "Oh, I go to college." And they're like, "What are you studying? When do you graduate?" Ask people, do you have internships? Do you have advice? Is there someone you can connect me with? Don't have any shame in it, because we've all gotten where we are because we've asked those questions, or to Nancy's point, right, mentors and stuff like that. So I think asking people, and what's the worst that happens? They say no. And if they say no, then you're kind of back to where you are, right? You're no worse, right? And I think being open-minded to what that opportunity is. So going back to my example, I really didn't like my HR internships. I did not like HR, but my first job offer I got was an HR job. And I was like, well, here we go. I'm going to do it. This is going to be my first couple of years of experience. It'll get me in the door. But then Oracle kind of came in last minute, luckily. But at the same time, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I didn't have like a burning, fiery passion for it or anything like that. But I knew this was going to get me some experience. I was going to learn some things. And it was just going to be my foot in the door. It was going to be a couple of years max. And so when I think of keeping your mind open to opportunities, also open to potentially relocating. So I'm originally from Houston, Texas. The first job I got was located in Houston. So even though it was a job I didn't like, it was back in Houston. So I was like, okay, that's great. But then when Oracle came along, it was a job I liked, and they wanted me to move to Denver. And that was not in my initial plan, but I moved to Denver, right? That's where the opportunity was. That's where the better opportunity was. And so I graduated and I moved to Denver. And so I think everyone has an idea of like what they think their plan is going to be or what their path is going to be. But when you have these liberal arts degrees, to Nancy's point, you're going to have to pivot, or something random is going to come up, or you're going to have a very random background. Like Catherine, you have the juvenile detention center, and I know you do stuff with the magazine. Like, your career can go in all different directions, and just be ready for that, really.
Awesome. Nancy, same question. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Britt, and my gosh, she graduated in 2013, right? And I graduated back in 1976. But I do think you have to keep your mind open. You really, and the possibilities. And, I actually, with experience, and I just told this today, for this job, my former boss in my office told me about this job and closed the door, said, "This is you," and me, and the rest is history. But also when I did want to mention this, not ships.
Nancy, Nancy, hang on one second. You're cutting in and out. I'm gonna stop your videos because I think I want to be able to hear you. So you'll be able to talk, but I am gonna stop your video for a second.
Oh, just want me.
Yep, go ahead and talk, Nancy.
Now?
Yes.
That's better.
Okay, now I completely lost my train of thought. What I was talking about was that, again, you have to, like Brittany said, talk, make more possibilities. I was saying that back when I was in school, there were no, and so we didn't have that opportunity. I mean, really. Now that I know that different companies came to campus and interviewed people, because I know that my college roommate got a job with Procter & Gamble. And back then, Procter and Gamble, the CEO, I think, graduated from Marietta College. And so they all Marietta to interview people, but we did not internship. I think quite valuable back then. And just listening to Professor Livingood about areas that are available, be much focused business type way, whereas when I went literature, English comp and so forth. So we had students have today.
Awesome. Nancy, I am going to, since we have a little bit more, I'm going to move on to another point. Can you do me a favor and hop out of the webinar and then just enter using the same link? It might reset your Zoom connection.
Okay.
We might be able to hear you, okay?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you so much. Sorry about that, everyone. Always the joys of technical difficulties in the middle of a live thing. So let's see, I had follow-up questions for Nancy. Here we go. Let's see if we get Nancy back.
I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so you didn't hear anything that I said?
No, we did. We did in and out, and I think it depends on who heard what, but I was just, what I caught were your internships and the networking and really reaching out because, you think of Marietta, right? And you have the petroleum program and like those
Right.
kids are going to go to a specific program or company, but English, you kind of have to hustle a little bit more. And so that's kind of what I gathered from.
Right. And again, we did not have internships, right? So we did not have that. And I also was talking about the classes that are available seem to be much more focused in terms of career-wise, and where when I went to school, it was all, literature classes, English comp, writing. I mean, I took Chaucer, I took world literature. There weren't the kinds of classes that Dr. Livingood was talking about. We just didn't have that available to us. So clearly it's changed in the right direction. And, I think it's fantastic. But again, you graduate with an English degree and you just have to have an open mind and, look to other opportunities that may come your way.
Can I build on that for a moment?
Of course.
We do primarily still focus on the literature classes.
Okay.
I think the difference is we're more intentional because I English. We're more intentional about helping students know how to talk about their experiences. And part of that is even just being transparent about like annotated bibs. Nobody likes them. Right? Professors don't, students don't. They are the most valuable thing you will write. And here's why. You like them, Catherine?
I do.
Yes, you are the only one. But they are so valuable because you have to take all of this information and be concise and relay it for somebody who isn't familiar with it. And you can translate that into any job or career. And so just even, I think, being more purposeful about how we help students understand why we ask them to do what we ask them to do, as well as having more options for the kind of professional classes that you were mentioning, I think is probably the other big change.
Now, Nancy, I'm going to ask you the same question because we do have a good number of young alumni on Facebook watching this right now. So is there any advice that you would have for younger alumni who are maybe looking for that next step and how to move up to a director level job, something fancy like you have?
Yeah, it's not really fancy, I have to tell you. Again, you have to be, so all hear me. Okay. You really think I had to be willing to at an area or level that was beneath me, quite frankly. But I knew that if I put in the time, that it was going to pay off. So each step I took was deliberate, and I learned, I gained more knowledge and responsibility, and then I took that to the next level. So sometimes you have to be patient. You can't get something immediately. You may not get your dream job. It took me probably, I'd say 15 years before I reached the level that I'm at today. Now, again, I've been doing it for a very long time, but each step I did a little more. So first I started with I moved to and community, political action and grassroots. Then I did state legislation, federal legislation. And then when I became director, I'm now in charge of everything. And, that's my advice is that sometimes you may have to start at a level that think is beneath you, or like Brittany said, she wasn't sure if that was the area she was interested in. And then you just have to go down that road. Now, I might have found that I didn't like what I was doing, like government relations, why am I doing this? But I did find when I pivoted to that I loved it. And it was something that, as I said, I never would have thought that I would ever be doing what I'm doing. But I can't also emphasize enough that the education, and I'm a huge fan of Marietta, so I'm just going to say it. The education I got, the liberal arts background, the relationships I build are very, very important to me. And I know that's a large reason why I am successful today. So.
I like hearing that. Dr. Livingood, if we have a few more minutes left before I did want to open it up to questions, but I would love to hear from you about what, as a professor, as a staff member at Marietta College, you want the alumni who are listening to know, and what you need from us, what you want us to know. And Catherine, a heads up, I'm coming to you next.
Oh, that is such a great question. I can't say enough about the importance of mentoring, both as I've been mentored by various people, as well as had the opportunity to mentor. And I think reaching out more, whether it's to Marietta students or just in general, and just helping, I think partly something I've been hearing is you don't know what's out there, right? And the truth is, especially, there are jobs that we're training for that don't exist yet. And so to help in informal and maybe more formal conversations, have those discussions about how we can use our liberal arts skills, not just our literature and research and writing skills, but just what we're getting from a Marietta College education, and how we can use those not only for careers, but I think professional betterment, or just, individual betterment, or civic engagement, and how all of those can come into play. I think building more relationships with the English department would be great. And I would love, I like Briley's question in the chat about what the Career Center can do to help English majors. I think that would be this is a great opportunity to connect graduates with current English majors just for informal conversations about what do you do? Because most of us aren't teaching English. And a lot of people are so relieved to find out that there are things you can do with an English major besides teach English, but we don't always know what those are. And so I think just looking for opportunities or saying yes to those opportunities as they arise would be fabulous. And then even just maybe offering, job shadows or informal interviews just to get a better sense of, well, what does a director do? It's this great title. It sounds fancy. Having been a director, I know it's not always glamorous, although sometimes you get free coffee. But what do you really do? And what does that look like? And how do you use people skills? Because I think that's something that we all do, is use our people skills. And it's because we had to learn how to communicate in various ways because of our education and then our responsibilities. So I think those would be some possibilities.
Catherine, how about you? You have a couple dozen alumni watching right now who are, obviously interested and have a vested interest in Marietta College and in you. What do you want us to know? What do you want us to hear?
I think Dr. Livingood's talks about job shadowing and mentoring are spot on. I think just having more alumni presence with students would be great, because when I first entered in the English major, I didn't know how many people were part of it. I didn't know really what was going on. And having an alumni or multiple alumni who come back and either come to a class to talk about what they do for a job and how their English major worked into that, or giving webinars such as this specifically for the English major with a panel of alumni and have them all talk about the different things they've done with their life and why they chose an English major above anything else would be really good. One thing I think we've really talked about a lot, but is English majors have trouble initially finding jobs because at first all they think is, I'm going to have to be a teacher or a professor. And that's what I thought for at least the first semester. And then it was through a program I did with an alumni that I realized that I could be an editor, I could work for HR, I could work really anywhere because an English degree is perfect for everything. What I've been told the most about being an English major is it means I know I'm going to do work and they know I'm going to put 100% of my effort into anything I do, so I'll do it well, which is why they want to hire me.
Awesome. That's a great tip and a great attitude and an outlook on what's coming next. I think, I graduated in 2006. The job market was very strong. It was not within 6 months. It had really gone down, and my friends who graduated 2007, 2008 really had a tough road of finding employment. So I think that the idea of the grit and determination is really important. That's probably part of what makes us all Marietta College pioneers. And to Nancy's point, sometimes you have to take the right job for right now. I was having a conversation with a student maybe 2 weeks ago, and she was going to go into she was contemplating whether or not to take an internship post graduation because it was offered, and it was at an agency she wanted to work at. And I said, take it. What else do you have? Do you have anything else? No? Take it. Because you never know what it's going to turn into. And I think it's so important to keep pushing and keep working at that, because that is why, ultimately we're in college, right? Do you have any suggestions for how we can communicate these non-traditional career paths? I think it's something we actually ended up with. Both of our alumni came, and this is for Dr. Livingood too. We have both of our seasoned alumni and our younger alumni have non-traditional, probably English career paths. And how should we communicate that and talk about those possibilities with students?
Well, one way that was done last year was simply by having an alumni who works in a specific field that has to do with English. Her name was Jamie. She worked for MLA in New York. And what we did is we chose projects that we would, investigative projects throughout the semester that she would shadow and mentor us through. And eventually we get to visit her and see what it's like in the MLA office. She was mainly offering her 2 cents and what it's like in the publishing industry, which was more helpful for me than anyone else because it was what I was really interested in. But having, I think, multiple things like that, maybe not being a full semester long, but only maybe the first 10 weeks, so you can have another. And having multiple alumni do that for students who are interested. I think doing maybe small, like once a week seminars could be with spotlight alumni would be nice. And of course, that's really hard because getting people's schedules all to align on a weekly and, bi-weekly manner is challenging, especially right now. And so maybe something like a pen pal could work. And, through email, you partner up with a specific alumni who is willing to just email you back and forth on a project you're heading up. Having alumni, I can say this, but I can't push forward with this because I'm not the head of Pulse magazine. But as an editor, having alumni, want to get involved with Pulse in some way could be really cool too. Things like that mainly.
I want to say a special thank you to Jamie Cleland. She is on the webinar, so thank you for doing that. I think that's awesome that you took the time out of your day, your busy day, to connect with students. So thank you very much. Awesome. How about same question for Dr. Livingood?
About how to connect folks.
Yeah.
Well, as Catherine was talking, I had this possible idea of like virtual internships, because I like the pen pal idea, but so much of, especially when one is in college, and even if it's a summer internship, we're in Ohio, and a lot of the bigger internships are in DC and New York City. And even before COVID, that was really expensive, and it's cost prohibitive for a lot of our students to be able, especially if they're unpaid internships. And so to be able to find a way to help students get some sort of professional opportunity in a place that they wouldn't otherwise be able to, I think would be fabulous. Even if they're just like 2-week, here's a glimpse into what you do, here's a short project. Because I think the more they're doing, the more they're finding out what's possible. But also, like, I had a 2-week internship at an ad agency, and it didn't take me long to figure out. I mean, it was supposed to be a summer, let me put it that way. It took me 2 weeks to figure out, no way. Like, I don't need to stick this out because I'm not going in to advertising. It just was a terrible fit. That was as valuable as the internships that worked well for me. And so I think just the more they can test out and explore the world, even if it's virtually, that's really important.
I think that's a really good point. Sometimes you learn the most about yourself when it's not the right fit and about the direction you want to go. I think that wraps up our kind of formal, if you will, questions and conversation. I wanted to invite Anna Mullins, class of 2004, to come on. She has a few questions that have come in the chat. Anna is another one of our MCAA board members. She's also on the communications committee. So Anna.
Hi guys. First of all, I want to pass along all the positive feedback and appreciation in the chat. We appreciate you guys taking time out of your night and for sharing all of your wonderful insights. It's been really nice hearing from the whole spectrum of English majors at Marietta College. One of the questions that was in the chat came from Briley Weekly, who's working in the Career Center, and wants to know what would be some events that the Career Center could host specifically to support English majors and minors.
I think that's
Dr. Livingood, I think I'll start with, I was going to say, we can start with Dr. Livingood as a professor, but I want to know from the alumni leader too.
I think just the more opportunities students have to practice pitching what they do, like, so tell me 3 ways you could use your annotated bib in this situation, or why does Shakespeare matter if you are going to be in human resources? Because he does matter, right? There's a reason that we read literature. It's to know the world more and to understand people better and differently. But we don't always recognize that, I think, if we're not having to sell it or just translate it for people who don't like Shakespeare. And so just the more opportunities that I think English majors have to talk to each other and others, like alumni, that would be wonderful practice, because we also don't really talk that much anymore. We're always on our phones and we're texting. And so to get less awkward with talking to strangers is a valuable skill. So we can be like Brittany and say, hey, do you have an internship, and not feel awkward about it or as awkward.
I just have no shame. I was like, please give me something. But no, I think you're spot on. I think that's like very sound advice, because that was my biggest issue, was articulating it. And I still struggle with it today. Like, people are like, how do you use it? And it's like, I wish I had that elevator pitch down better for people like Catherine or the other people that are on the phone.
Nancy, what are some things that you think the Career Center could have done to better prepare you? I know you have an interesting path.
I have to tell you, I'm not sure there was a Career Center when I was there. I'm being honest. We're talking a long time ago. Things were different. You guys talking about cell phones and computers. I was telling them the other night, we had none of that. We had to communicate with one another. There was no other way to do it, right? Verbally, right? So, and again, as I said, I think that was, you know, severely lacking when I was there. And it sounds to me like you guys have made, you know, great strides and you're all doing the right thing. And, you know, that's really all I can say about that. Again, I didn't have the opportunity or the experience. It would have been great to have somebody kind of counsel me. Even my advisor at the time didn't really give me much feedback or information in terms of different career paths. But again, remember, I was pretty focused on being a high school English teacher. Like Catherine said, with English, that's all you think you might be able to do. That is all I wanted to do my whole life since I was a little girl. That's what I wanted to do. And so when I left Marietta, that was my goal. So
Barbara Metcalf and Tim Maroney both say that there was no career center when you guys were there.
right, correct.
So.
Good, I'm glad I didn't miss that.
You missed that office on campus. You walked past it.
Right.
I do have a practical idea for the Career Center too, and that is helping, and this is probably not just for English majors, although I know it's a challenge, helping majors read job ads and match the terms to what they do. So in other words, must be a skilled communicator. Well, we are. I say I'm an English major too. We are skilled communicators, but to be able to say, oh, that's what I do, here is how I do it, because you essentially have to figure out how to match it's a matching game. This is what the job ad is asking for. This is how I do this every day. I have to make that clear for my audience, but it comes with practice. And so even having that modeled and then asking English majors to practice that, I think would be a really good life skill, because we know this, they're going to need to write more than one resume and one job letter.
And I wanted to piggyback off of that, because I think you nailed it, Dr. Livingood. You're going to have to write more than one resume, right? You can't just have your resume and every time you apply, you just submit it, right? You're going to have to really look at the job description, look at the skills, and you're going to have to just articulate it differently depending on the job. And that's hard, but doing that due diligence will separate you, because if you just send your generic resume, it's not articulating the specifics of the job. And also when you do that type of preparation, like that mapping exercise, then when you do get an interview, you've already thought about this at least. You're not kind of being asked on the spot.
Catherine, I do want to give you a chance to weigh in on this candidly.
Mm-hmm.
We won't let Betsy not be upset if you
Well, I've actually been to the center quite a few times, and they've really helped me with refining my resume, because that was really hard for me to figure out. I could write the little, this is why I don't believe I should be an English major, because I forget words all the time. But they've really helped me with expanding my job search. I was mainly looking through Handshake and web places like Indeed.com, and they brought, well, why don't you just look at the websites of the publishing industries? They usually offer their jobs there instead of on Handshake. And that was really nice of them, because they really push Handshake for hiring people, and I don't think that's bad, but to also let me know that that's not all there is was super helpful.
I feel like we've spent a lot of time talking about the Career Center and career prospects, and I think we do have several Career Center people on the call listening, so I hope this feedback is valuable. And I hope that for any students who are listening, you understand the dedication that the alumni on here have. And if you look in the chat, I see Brittany's dad is advocating for some Career Center work too. He's also a graduate of Marietta, I think. Did you say 79?
Yeah, both my parents are 79.
Okay. So, the Marietta College alumni are very interested in helping students and furthering the Career Center. So that's a good takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, were there any other questions before we wrap up?
There was one other question Jack had asked earlier, if the grant writing minor that exists now at MC connects students to community foundations, either in their home communities or with the Marietta Community Foundation.
It's the grant writing is part of the professional writing minor, but it's also a freestanding class. And I am not sure, I think it's offered every other year. We've only offered it maybe 2 times. So I know Catherine can speak to this more, but I've had one student intern at the Marietta Community Foundation is what I wanted to say. But I know, Catherine, you've had more experience with the class itself.
The class is now actually offered, I think, every other semester. Mr. Cromwell, I don't know what his station is, but he teaches that class along with children's literature because that's what he focused on. That was his old job prospect. And it really does connect us with people in the community. I had never really looked at Marietta from anything other than a student's eye, and working with WeWorks, which is over in Harmertown, and they specialize in helping people find new technical specialties and getting back into the job market, as well as helping students as well. They focus on helping everyone mainly. It's pretty awesome. But I worked one-on-one with them to make a grant. And this wasn't a grant they used because it wasn't what they were focusing on at the time. And, you know, the pandemic started and it just got really confusing. But it forced me to interact with people in a different way than you do as just a Marietta College student. It made me more invested in Marietta as a town, especially with the Harmer Bridge and everything that was going on with that at the time as well.
So there was one follow-up question about the grant writing, and that was whether that grant writing service or education could be offered virtually to anybody anywhere, or if they have to work with communities nearby.
No, it did not have to be with a local place. It was a choice that Mr. Cromwell gave us. I chose to go somewhere local to build off of a previous project we had done for the class. Other people were creating grants for places in their hometown as well. It was kind of just up to all of us what we wanted to focus on.
Awesome. Well, I think that our scheduled time ended at 9, and I like to end my Zoom meetings on time. I think that's probably appreciated these days. I want to really thank each one of our alumni panelists for coming today and taking the time to talk with us. And to our very special student, Catherine, we all wish you the best of luck as you finish up your senior year. Please do reach out if you need absolutely anything. We would, as you can probably tell, the alumni are here to help you and want to help you.
Yes, it's always been so nice talking to alumni and hearing their feedback because it's always really unique coming from a liberal arts college.
And Jack Hopkins, the chair of the MCAA, asked me to extend his thank you to each one of you as well, and to all the alumni who attended. You heard me mention Tim Maroney's name earlier. Tim Maroney is going to be our seasoned alumni for the next iteration of the Connect 4 series, which will be in late January, early February. We're going to be focusing on the Marietta College History Department for session 2. Tim and I were speaking. Tim and I got to know each other when I was on campus. He was a member of the Board of Trustees, and we were speaking, and we decided that that was the direction we're going next. So stay tuned for a follow-up email regarding that one. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. It's much appreciated. And hopefully we can build this program and continue going through the end of the year at least. I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was
Bye-bye.
fabulous. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.